Good morning. Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're finishing up Matthew chapter 26 today. Jesus is being beaten and spat upon in the gathering room there at Caiaphas's house. And Peter is followed at a distance and in the courtyard immediately outside the room, but within his line of sight, which Luke makes clear. Peter is sitting, and he can see what's happening. And this is where he denies Jesus exactly the way Jesus said he would. Verse 69, Matthew chapter 26. Now Peter was sitting outside the courtyard, and a certain servant girl came to him and said, "You too were with Jesus, the Galilean." But he denied it before them all, saying, "I do not know what you're talking about." And when he had gone out to the gateway, another servant girl saw him and said to those who were there, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." And he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." And a little later the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Surely you too are one of them, for the way you talk gives you away." And he began to curse and swear, "I do not know the man." And immediately the cock crowed, and Peter remembered the word which Jesus had said, "Before a cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. Let me get the cock crowing out of the way. Matthew, Mark, and Luke do not agree on how many times the cock crowed. And if you have a problem with that, I'm sorry, but I don't. I refuse to hold a first century document to 21st century standards of reporting, especially when we know how porous those standards can be in the 21st century. Also, the cock crowing can mean different things in the first century. Sometimes it meant the bugle call of the morning, and sometimes it meant the actual rooster crowing. So I'm just putting that aside as being insignificant. And let's talk about what's actually happening here. Peter's a Galilean, and he has a Galilean accent. I'm from the Ohio Valley. I'm from the mid-Ohio Valley, and I've got an accent that will betray me, especially if I'm back home for more than a day. And he has an accent, and that identifies him as not Judean, as Galilean. And people commented on the differences between the accents. It's hard for our ears to try to figure those things out, but it was evident to everyone. And so he gives himself away as a Galilean, the way an American or an Australian would in Great Britain. And therefore he's immediately identified, and he denies it more vociferously each time. He uses an oath. That means he swears an oath before God that he doesn't know who Jesus is. The blasphemy, the betrayal, the hypocrisy of that is just enormous. And it would be to the first century reader. And then later on, as he continues to be accused, it says that he continues to make oaths and gives curses. Now, the words oaths and curses can mean to our ears cussing, using vulgar language. And that's not what this means at all, although it's no less offensive than that. It doesn't mean he was saying cuss words. It means he was literally offering oaths and curses. "I swear before God. I swear before heaven and earth. I swear before the temple. I swear before the Holy of Holies. I don't know this man." And then offering curses. "May you be cursed by all that is holy. I curse you, I curse him." No, that's what's happening. And that's as bad or worse than using what we think of as cuss words. He is invoking God as his witness and invoking the wrath of God to protect him in this lie. That's worse than using cuss words, heavens. And that's what he does. And then the cock crows, and he immediately remembers, and he goes out and he weeps bitterly, and of course he does. Of course he does. This event is juxtaposed in Matthew's gospel, and let's not forget that Matthew did not write in chapters and verses. He just wrote the text. And so connected to each other, immediately contiguous to each other, we have the account of Peter, the denier, and Judas, the betrayer, which we will talk about next time. But before we leave this passage, let's not forget what we learn from Luke's gospel about these events. When Jesus tells Peter ahead of time that he's about to betray him, he also tells him these words, "But I have prayed for you." He says, Satan is about to sift you like wheat. He's asked permission. So that's a curious and informative phrase, isn't it? Satan has asked permission to sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you. And when you return, strengthen your brethren. You're going to do this. You're going to fail, and you're going to fail miserably. And Satan is going to beat you like grain on the floor of the threshing floor. And you're going to fail. But I prayed for you. And he says, when you return, not if you return, when you return, strengthen your brothers. There's something else Luke tells us. Luke tells us that when the cock crowed that last time, that Peter and Jesus, their eyes met. Can you imagine that? The line of sight, the connecting, the eye contact. Jesus with just having been beaten, having his face covered in the spit of other men. And then Peter having denied him, and their eyes meeting. It's good to remember this moment when we fail. It's good for us to imagine our eyes meeting the eyes of Jesus, and it's good for us to weep bitterly, and it's good for us to remember that Jesus is our high priest speaking to his Father on our behalf, and it's good to return knowing that we can strengthen others for the experience of having failed and repented and received grace and returned again. But it's part of one whole piece of cloth. It's that process. There can be no grace without the bitter tears. There can be no growth and strength without our eyes meeting and knowing fully what we've done. It just can't be. It's such a gift that we're given to be let in on this moment of Peter's great failure. And I hope that it will teach us as well how to deal with our own failures. Well, we'll learn how not to deal with them next time when we talk about Judas. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.